Educationists in general agree that one of the basic aims of a good education system is the development of students as independent learners. So how can we actually develop students as independent learners rather than people who depend for their learning on, for example, their teachers? To make students independent learners, there are certain things that we need to do in order to assist students in the process of becoming independent learners. The first important requisite is actually the proper development of language. Generally, language is one of the most important factors that plays its role in the teaching learning process. So in the formal educational contexts, language is an important tool for learning. Generally in schools there is a particular medium of instruction. In many cases the medium of instruction is the mother tongue of the students, but in other cases the medium of instruction is another language, a second language, or a foreign language. In any case, it is important that the language of students must be developed in order for them to become more independent learners. Deficiency in language will result in and will impact the process of the students' learning. Secondly, the second important thing that we need to develop in order for students to become independent learners is the development of critical and independent thinking. Critical thinking makes students independent in terms of thinking on their own, on their observations and experiences, and in terms of coming up with original ideas. So critical thinking also helps students in thinking in diverse ways related to their experiences and observations in and outside the school. So it is important that the schools or the teachers develop the critical thinking abilities and skills of the students. So an environment needs to be created that helps in the critical thinking development of the students. Thirdly, there should be an environment where there is activity-based education, where the students can put their theoretical knowledge into practice. So only theoretical knowledge that generally comes through lectures is not sufficient for students to become independent learners. So activity-based, the more there is activity-based learning environment where students take part in activities, the more there are chances that they become independent learners. The next very important thing that education institution need to do is to develop differentiated learning environment where there is a variety of teaching strategies, a variety of learning opportunities and experiences, and also a variety of assessments, keeping in view the individual differences, the individuality, the individual environments from which the students come, and also a variety of the students' abilities and skills and aptitudes. So differentiated teaching, learning and assessment processes will also help students in becoming independent learners. Then comes the freedom to experiment. The school or the education institutions need to give an environment to the students where they can experiment with freedom, where they can take risks, and so where there is no punishment for wrong answers or for making mistakes. So students need to have an environment where they can make mistakes and they can learn from those mistakes, and where they can experiment in their own ways. And one other important factor is to do this is to have a non-threatening environment in the educational institutions, where mistakes are not essentially punished, rather than they are taken as opportunities for learning and for improving. And another very important factor is peer collaboration, or collaboration, an environment where students can collaborate with each other. Students, for example, students who have a variety of different types of abilities can learn from each other. For example, there could be students who are good at one subject, and then there are others who are good at other subjects, and so there should be an environment where they can actually learn from each other. They can collaborate, and they can cooperate with each other in the process of learning. And so the teachers and the educational institution need to develop this collaborative environment in the schools. Encouraging, another very important thing is the encouragement of regular reading. Reading is very important in making the students independent in terms of their learning, because reading helps students in developing their vocabulary, in developing background theoretical knowledge, and also reading helps in developing and giving opportunity to students to reflect on whatever they read. And as a result, reading is a very important way for students to become independent learners. So schools need to develop an environment of intensive and extensive reading. Then the feedback that comes especially from the teachers, should be constructive, so that students are encouraged to, even if they make mistakes, they are encouraged to do things on their own, and the feedback that they get is helpful in terms of improving themselves. Co-curricular activities is again a very important way to develop the independence of action of the students, and as a result, during the co-curricular activities, there are opportunities for students to learn on their own, and to observe, to make experiments, and to experience in a practical sense, and to learn from those experiences. And lastly, an overall environment of encouragement and motivation. Motivation on the part of the educators, or the school leaders, or the educational institution leaders. Encouragement to the students to experiment, to do things on their own, to come up with their own ideas, to come up with their own problems, and to come up with their own solutions. So these are important ways in which we can, in the educational institutions, can actually develop students as independent learners.